Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about the pair of speakers that you are seeing behind of me. Those are the Amphions 218 and on top of them is the Amphion Amp 700. I've been testing the Amphions for more than a month now, I think, and in this video I want to share my thoughts and how I feel about the speakers. First, I want to say a big thank you to Kosti from Trill for bringing the speakers into my studio. This is a demo pair, so I will not keep them. I have to send them back. Amphion is a Finnish brand and they are really popular when it comes to mixing and mastering, but also in the hi-fi space. I will approach this video from a mixing and mastering engineer perspective because that's the main purpose I've tested the Amphions for. I got the Amphions on demo because, like I've said in a previous video, I wanted something that's special in the mid-range. I want, let's call it a super resolution in the mid-range. That's the area where I feel that the Eves are lacking just a bit, and I want to add a second pair of speakers for that purpose. I'm coming from a pair of ATCs, so I am used to a special mid-range, let's call it. The Amphions did not disappoint in that regard. The mid-range on the Amphion is special, but it's also something that I couldn't get used to. It's a really mid-range forward speaker. It has a lot of punch. It has a lot of depth when it comes to the stereo image. I've tested the Amphions in multiple positions. I've tested them in really narrow position, but I also tested them in a really wide position, plus in your regular equilateral triangle. The Amphion sounded the best in the normal position, but also when I had them a bit wider and I had them on the right of the Eves. When it comes to the bass, I wouldn't say that it's non-existent, but the roll-off is pretty drastic. You can get the job done when it comes to mixing. For mastering, things are a bit more difficult because even though you can hear sub information, I wouldn't trust the Amphions with bass-heavy music. It's recommended to get the extension. I know that Amphion has a bass extension that's specially designed for their range. I think with that you have a complete system, but the price will go exponentially up. The 218s are around 10k euros with the amp. I think that's the ballpark of the price, 9,000 euros around that range. So they are pretty expensive speakers. I've used the speakers with the amp 700, so with the recommended amp, plus I've used the Amphion cables with the entire system. So everything was Amphion in that regard. The transient response on the Amphions is amazing, but it's not what I prefer. I think the speakers are a bit too punchy for my taste. I couldn't get used to that sort of response. I had a similar experience with the PSIs in the past, where they were really revealing in that department, but it's not the sound that I prefer when it comes to mixing. The build quality on the speaker is pretty solid. This is a demo pair, so it's been carried around quite a bit, and I cannot see any heavy use marks on the speakers, and that speaks about the quality. The amp construction is really solid, and again, the cables are really impressive. A bit on the short side for my studio, I think. The cables are 2 meters or 2.5 meters, but I've managed to place the amp behind the desk, and that fixed the length problem. When it comes to the top end, these are bright speakers in my opinion. They are not harsh, but compared to the Eves, they are brighter. From the Eves 3010s, ATC 25s and the Amphions 218, the Amphions have the brightest top end. It's again something that I didn't like that much. I prefer the top end on the ATCs. From all the speakers that I have in the studio right now, the ATCs are my type of jam when it comes to the top end. We talked about the transient response, and we talked about the stereo image. All of those are not my taste. It's not something that I truly enjoy when listening to music on the Amphions. I can see myself working on the Amphions, and I have to admit that the translation for the track that I've worked on the Amphions was really good. I had no issue in that regard. What I was hearing, especially in the mid-range in the studio, was translating really good. I had some issues, of course, for the low-end translating instantly in other scenarios, but that was expected since the bass on the Amphions is not that powerful. I had a couple of issues with the top-end translating. My mixes were a bit too dull when taking the finished project outside the studio. I have to admit that the Amphions are beautiful speakers. One strange issue that I have, let's call them, with the Amphions is when you have two pairs, the difference between the pairs is so drastic. For example, I've used the Amphions with the ATCs and with the Eves, and every single time I was switching between the speakers, the difference was so major that I disliked that feeling. When switching to a different pair, to the Amphions, the sound of the Amphions was strange. But once you get accustomed to that sound, you really enjoy working on them. And then when switching back to another pair, you hate that pair, and you need some time to get accustomed to that sound. That's something that threw me off quite a bit, because every single time I was switching pairs, I disliked them both. It's strange, but that's probably because of the huge contrast that exists between the pairs. I don't see myself having Amphions as my secondary pair. I think Amphions are meant to be your main speaker. You have to learn the sound, and I think for that purpose it's an amazing system. For my purpose, adding them as my secondary pair of speaker, they weren't working for me. It was a really strange experience. Maybe in the future I will try out the smaller Amphions, maybe 115, 118, just to see how different they are from the 218s, because from what I've asked around and from my research, the 2 series is a bit different from the 1 series. So I have to see if I can bring another pair of Amphions in the near future. At the end of the video, I just want to say that the mid-range on the Amphions is something different. I haven't heard anything like it before. The downside is that they are passive, or maybe for some this is an advantage, but for me it's a disadvantage. They are truly 100% analog. I was recommended not to push them really hard because the tweeter is really sensitive. That was the recommendation online and from people that already have Amphions. I am really happy that I got to test out Amphions, and maybe in the future, when I'll build another studio, a different room from this one, where I want just a single pair of speakers, maybe Amphions will be my choice. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe. If you want exclusive content and early access to my videos, you can join me on Patreon. Thanks for the support, and see you guys really soon.